SSh-36, also known as Khalhingolka, is an individual protective equipment for soldiers of the Soviet Armed Forces. A steel helmet model of 1936-IT was the first steel helmet of Soviet production adopted by the Red Army. In other sources, it is referred to as the Red Army Steel Helmet Model 1935 during its development. This individual protective equipment was widely used in the armed forces of the Soviet Union during the battles at Kazan and Khalhingolka, in the Polish campaign of the Red Army, in the Soviet-Finnish War, and in the early period of the Great Patriotic War. Its use was also noted among Soviet soldiers of certain units during the Soviet-Japanese War in 1945. The SSh-36 was worn with a helmet liner, like all other helmets. In the 1920s to 1930s, the Red Army used helmets of the Adrian helmet type, which had appeared in the Russian Army in 1916, as well as M17 helmets in relatively small quantities. The M29 helmet, developed in 1929, as well as the M30 from 1930, were never put into production. In mid-1934, the People's Commissariat of Defense of the USSR issued a task to develop a steel helmet for the Red Army, suitable for the conditions of modern combined arms combat. In the same year, a prototype was presented to the military leadership, which was personally tested by Marshal of the Soviet Union S.M. Budyonny. By his initiative, the helmet adopted into service had wide side flaps designed to protect the soldier's shoulders from cutting blows from above. The flaps were meant to deflect the blade away from the shoulder. In 1935, production of a new model helmet began at the Lisvensky metallurgical plant, developed by Schwartz, which was adopted for use in 1936 and received the designation SSh-36. The new helmet featured an original hemispherical shape with an outstanding forward visor and sloped side fields. Its silhouette resembled the German steel helmet. The SSh-36 became the first helmet designed and mass-produced in the USSR. The SSh-36 faced its combat debut during the Spanish Civil War, where it was supplied to the Republicans and international brigades. In the summer of 1938, steel helmets were used during the fighting at Lake Hassan. According to the analysis of the injuries sustained by Red Army soldiers during the fighting at Lake Hassan, it was determined that having a helmet reduced the mortality rate from skull injuries to 5.8%, whereas during World War I, the mortality rate from skull injuries for soldiers of the Imperial Army, who did not have metal helmets, was 50%. Subsequently, it was actively used by the Red Army in battles at Khalhingolka, where it earned the nickname Khalhingolka, as well as in the Winter War and during the Polish campaign in 1939. However, a significant number of shortcomings were identified during its use. For example, the wide fields created a sail effect and made it difficult for soldiers to move, while the large visor reduced visibility. For these and other reasons, work began in 1939 on the next helmet, which later became known as the SSh-39, and then the SSh-40. Starting in 1940, the Red Army began the gradual replacement of the SSh-36 with the new model helmets, but the onset of the Great Patriotic War delayed this replacement, leading to the SSh-36 being used alongside the SSh-40 by Soviet soldiers until approximately 1943. At the same time, some of the Soviet soldiers used this helmet during the Soviet-Japanese War in August-September 1945.